videos, people often ask me how I keep my clay clean, and I'm just going to show you 3 tips that will help you keep your charms dust free. So the first tip I have is to use all-purpose flour. This stuff works so well because it just keeps your clay less sticky. So I keep my flour in this bottle, which I got from Daiso. So I just I keep it on a pile on my clay surface, and I just sprinkle it on top of my clay, kind of like this. And I also keep it like, I put my fingers with it whenever I pick up a piece of clay because it helps prevent fingerprints. But you do not want to use flour for dark colored clay like black because it'll show up when you bake it. So just use it on light colors like tan and white and yellow and beige, and it'll keep your clay non-sticky and dust-free. So my next tip to keep your clay clean is to use baby wipes. So you're just going to need 1 baby wipe next to you while you work on your polymer clay. And whenever you switch colors, especially from from dark to light colors, like from red and black, you really want to wipe your hands with baby wipes because it'll really get the clay out of your hands, and it's a lot better than running to the sink and washing your hands every time you switch clay colors. So the next tip I have is to always use an X-Acto knife to remove the dust from your clay. You can either do this before baking or after. This is an example of before baking. See, there's a piece of red in my white clay, so you just need to scrape it off, and there you have it. You just need to smooth it out, and that area is now free of that piece of red clay. Now here's an example of scraping off the dust after you bake. So here's a charm that I have. It is a hot chocolate mug, and let's see. You see there's a tiny piece of dust right there. So what you need to do is just use the end of your blade. There's this little part right here, and just scrape it off. And that area is now dust free. You can't see it that well. It's not this one. It was somewhere around here. You can't see it that well, but I did remove it with the end of my blade. So this is a tip that I have learned from watching other polymer clay artists on YouTube, and it works so well. So in order to make clean cuts, I use an X-Acto knife, but when I need to make a cut really clean, I put a block of clay into the freezer for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then I cut it, and it just comes out so clean. So here is a block of tan clay, which I did not put into the freezer. So just watch me cut it. Alright, so it does come down a little bit here, like that. See, it's not perfect. Okay, so then I put this one into the freezer for 5 minutes, and just watch what happens when I cut it. It is so much cleaner. You can't really tell the difference actually, but let's see if you can. Yeah, you can see the difference. This is much straighter, and this is more curved downwards because the clay is softer. Okay, so yeah, just put it into the freezer and it will harden up, and the X-Acto knife will cut through it. It'll be a little bit tough, but it turns out really clean. So yeah. So I know people have a lot of methods to put eye pins into their charms. Some people put it in with TLS, and some people use head pins and then twist the wire after baking. But I just like to use eye pins. And what I do is that I have a long piece of eye pin, which I buy at Michael's, and I have these pliers, I think they cut, and I just clip it like that. And then I stick it into my charm, and then I bake the charm. So here's an example of a charm that's already baked. So then I just take the eye pin out, and I use either Crazy Glue or Gorilla Glue to secure the eye pin to the charm. So to do that, I pretty much take off the cap, and then I swivel it around in here so it has a decent amount of super glue on it. Don't put too much or else it'll stick out of the charm and look really awkward. So then I just stick it into the charm and wait for it to dry. It only takes a couple minutes, but to make sure it really dries, you should probably wait a couple hours. So when making charms, if you ever want to make like chocolate sauce or something that looks like liquid, you want to use translucent liquid Sculpey or Fimo Deco Gel, Deco D-E-K-O, or you want to use Sculpey Bacon Bond. I heard that Sculpey Bacon Bond works the same way as TLS, except it's much less expensive, so please try that. I never tried it before. So basically, if you want to color, so translucent liquid Sculpey turns out translucent after you bake it. To color it, you have to use chalk pastels, and if you use paint instead of chalk pastels, it will puff up. I'm not exactly sure why, but you should definitely use chalk pastels, and I got this at Michael's for I think $10 or something. So it just comes in a pack like that. And you want to use your X-Acto knife to cut off the chalk like that, and just mix it with the Deco Gel. The Deco Gel or the TLS, and you'll be good to go. Just apply that on your charms and bake normally, and it'll turn out with a really nice liquid effect. So as you all know, I'm really big into making kawaii charms, and one thing that every kawaii charm has to have is a face. So I really don't like painting on faces with paint, because I don't understand how you get the mouth so thin with black paint. It just doesn't work for me. So what I do is I roll out a piece of black clay, and I use Fimo Classic because it's very crumbly, and it works really well in rolling out a really thin piece of clay. So just roll it out, and as you can see, it's breaking apart really well. That's what you really want. And you usually have this like piece that rolls off that becomes really thin, and that's what you want to use for your face. So here's a really tiny piece of clay. It's really thin, and that's what I'm going to use for the mouth. So as many of you guys noted in my videos, is that I don't use glaze for my charms. I used to use triple thick glaze, but it became really bad. It kind of dried up and became really sticky, and it smells really funky. So instead, I don't glaze my charms, but occasionally when I need to paint on details or use Sharpie to paint on the details, I need to find a way to seal it and prevent it from rubbing off or chipping off. And what I figured out works really well is Mod Podge. I use matte Mod Podge because it goes really well with the whole matte thing. I leave my charms unglazed. So I just got this at Michael's, and it's really cheap. So I just paint that onto the part where I painted or drew with Sharpie. And it does get a little bit sticky, but that's a lot better than having the paint chipping off. So here are some charms that I used Mod Podge on. Oops. Here is a kawaii shooting star. I put on the face with Sharpie. And then I just painted the top with Mod Podge. So I'm not worried about the Sharpie rubbing off. And I also have this dinosaur, and it has a love on it, a love heart, and I painted it on with acrylic paint, and I just used Mod Podge to seal it as well. So Mod Podge works really, really well.